Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing today, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Ben Burnside Show, coming at to you from my studio, my illustrious studio here in my house. And this is the show where I get to talk about whatever I want as I see fit. So let's get to it. It's all business today. All business, or tonight, I should say. It's actually 12:23 a.m. at night. Why am I doing this at 12:23 a.m. at night? Because I'm an idiot. That's why. Anyway, okay, I'm on a roll. I gotta calm down. Here. Just relax. Relax, Ben. Relax. Ben, relax. Okay. Anyway, I am here to. This is a video. This is going to kind of be a long video too. It's going to be a review of. I've been meaning to get to this for a while. It's the review of the 4-day Republican National Convention from a couple weeks ago. So this is going to be a political show, obviously, as you see from the title at this point. And mainly, I'm just going to go through the Republican National Convention. I gotta be honest, there were bits and pieces that I missed out, as you're gonna see from the first couple days in particular. I didn't see the glaring one. I didn't see the Tim Scott stuff. I didn't see the Rand Paul stuff. So there you have it with that. I didn't really see, especially Tim Scott. I didn't see those speeches. So there were some speeches in the Republican National Convention that I missed. You know, forgive me that this fucking convention that's 13 hours long in total, then forgive me that I managed to miss a couple of speeches like that for a convention that is ridiculously too long and self-indulgently too long. These conventions, and I'm pretty sure I said this when I reviewed the Democratic National Convention, these conventions are way too fucking long. They are just ridiculously too long. So long, I may get tired by like when I go deep into it, like by day 3, like day 3.5 or something. So forgive me, bear with me, but I'm not gonna take all the accountability on that one because these shows are just too goddamn long. What do these conventions really do? What do these conventions do for the presidential candidates of Donald Trump and Joe Biden? How much did it really move in the polls in terms of their opportunity for president? Well, according to the polls, after both of these conventions were done, barely anything. It barely did a notch combined. For Joe Biden, it really didn't do anything. For Trump, it moved him like by 1%, and that's it. It seemed like 1, maybe 2%, and that's it. It really didn't help at all, and ever since then, Trump kind of brought it back down because of how he's handled all the stuff with Portland and the stuff with Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, all that stuff. So there we go. And as you also notice from the title of this video, I'm going to sprinkle in some stuff that's currently happened in the last ever since after the Republican National Convention as well, and give my thoughts on it. You know, I've been casually following the news. Like I don't consider me an expert. I'm just kind of an average viewer. But I've been watching politics more than I have ever before the last couple months by with looking at a lot of the news. Or at least maybe the most credible news out there, which is from the Hill newspaper, which I find to be very neutral and very journalistic in their work. They're not looking at the left or the right. They're not leaning toward a particular side or agenda. They're just the only agenda they're looking for is reporting, and that's it. Which is what these media news sites should be, all of them. But unfortunately, they're not. So that's what I'm looking at as the Hill. Just to clarify, all the RNC videos that I'm going to review on here as I'm going through all the videos is from the C-SPAN channel. C-SPAN is probably the most credible channel in terms of being non-biased. I see they have Steve Scully on here talking about the RNC, or hosting it before it starts here. Steve Scully is going to be a moderator for one of the presidential debates. Easily the most credible moderator to me, more than Chris Wallace and that woman from MSNBC, because C-SPAN is the shit, along with The Hill. Both of them are amazing. So there you go. You should follow those two sites if you want a news source that's not fucking biased whatsoever. Because I'm sick of these media sources, the irresponsibility of the media in a number of platforms these days. They're biased and they're just not very good. They're not good reporting, and I just want a fair. I don't want nothing biased. The reporters aren't supposed to be biased. I demand that. What happened to the fucking Walter Cronkite days? What happened? Is that too much to ask? Are we in a different age to where that we can't do that? Please, someone answer that question for me. I'd like to hear that. So that's what I have to say about that. It's getting ridiculous. It is getting ridiculous now. As I am viewing the RNC, I'm fucking pumped up. Let's see here. And as I'm saying that I'm getting pumped up. I should, at The Hill, and specifically I listen to a talk show on The Hill that kind of, I think, represents the entire Hill newspaper. It's a internet show on YouTube, from The Hill YouTube channel, called The Rising, with journalists Crystal Ball and Sagar Anjeti, who are Sagar more leans toward the right, Crystal leans more towards the left, and she also ran for, I believe, legislature in the state of Kentucky. So she has some political experience. And Sagar, he's only 28 years old. He's a guy. Crystal's a girl. Crystal's relatively young too. She's only 38, and so I think that they're amazing. You should go check them out, and I'm going to get a lot of my opinions from them. I'm trying to get more than just one source, but I think they're a great source to start out with. Non-biased again. They criticize everybody, and they also praise people too when they deserve to be praised, which unfortunately in the national level of politics doesn't really seem to be that often. So yeah. Anyway, let's look at the Republican National Convention. Let's just get to it. I'm just going to scroll through the video here. Okay, so Steve Scully's talking. He's previewing the RNC. And immediately we get a hype video for the RNC here. And okay, they're getting into it with the hype video for day one. And then they have a Cardinal Timothy Dolan saying prayer to kick off the convention. And the first person, and they did a pledge allegiance to the flag with a World War II veteran. I thought that was a nice touch. Upon reviewing these conventions again, I think it was pretty clear that between the DNC and the RNC, the Republican National Convention, the RNC, they had a better convention, in my opinion, than the DNC did. And because they used people like this World War II guy, they just had a lot of everyday people talking to the public and not politicians, Even though the DNC had that too, it felt a lot more effective in the RNC for some reason. And you'll see why as this show progresses. So with the World War II guy saying the Pledge of Allegiance, the first guy talking on a stage, on a platform stage where pretty much almost everybody in the RNC who spoke on this platform stage. I'm on 624 of the day one video, just to show you the stage. They have A lot of people talked on this stage of the Republican National Convention that was set up in a government in like an auditorium that is owned by the federal government in Washington D.C. Look, you can't do bias campaigning like this. You can't run political campaign ads, which is kind of what the national conventions are, just glorified ads to vote for a president. You can't do this stuff you can't do that kind of stuff in any level of government in a government-owned facility or or while you're on the job in government and stuff like that. That violates a federal law called the Hatch Act. And before I get into the reviewing of the Republican National Convention, I want to mention that too. Throughout this entire convention and speculating into the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump and the Trump administration planned to do most of the convention, and they did end up doing it, about 95% of it, in government-owned facilities. And that violates a federal law called the Hatch Act. And let me, just to get an enlightenment of what the Hatch Act is, I wanted to provide kind of a definition of what the law states. I'll kind of go on Google here. But it's a big deal. It's a violation of federal law. And the Republicans openly violated it on all 4 days of the convention, very noticeably. Hatch Act. Hatch Act of 1939. This is good God. This is an 81-year-old act. So let's take a look here, according to Wikipedia. The Hatch Act of 1939, an act to prevent pernicious political activities, is a United States federal law. Alexa, what does pernicious mean?
The adjective pernicious is usually defined as causing the city of harm or ruin, ruinous, injurious, hurtful. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for pernicious.
Yeah, could be harmful political activities is a United States federal law. Its main provision prohibits civil service employees in the executive branch specifically of the federal government, except the president and vice president, from engaging in some forms of political activity. Oh, well, okay. Okay, so that kind of exempts the president with that rule, and the vice president, but that doesn't exempt everybody else. And a lot of people did pernicious political activity by speaking in government facilities. Let's look more into this Hatch Act, because now I'm getting kind of curious. Because I was under the impression that the Hatch Act was a violation where you can't do biased political activity on government-owned property, regardless of who you are. Well, and that's if you're a government employee, which a lot of these people are. And so a lot of this stuff was done in this auditorium in D.C., which again was government-owned. And then President Trump did a lot of stuff in the White House, which is a government-owned property. He did political speeches there, and he did a lot of activities that were filmed in the White House for the convention while he was acting as a civil service that day. As he was acting as a civil servant that day. So it was, he really did follow. Let's see. I think there's more to the Hatch Act than I'm not getting from this Wikipedia answer. Let's go to osc.gov just real quick. I want to skim through it. Okay, here we go. This is according to the U.S. Office of Special Counsel. So the Hatch Act, a federal law passed in 1939, limits certain political activities of federal employees, as well as some state, D.C., and local government employees who work in connection with federally funded programs. The law's purposes are to ensure that federal programs are administered in nonpartisan fashion, to protect federal employees from political coercion in the workplace, and to ensure that federal employees are advanced based on merit and not based on political affiliation. Well, it doesn't say that the president and vice president here can't do it, and limits certain political activities of federal employees. And it doesn't say you can't do it on land. So there's a lot of complications here about the Hatch Act, because the Hill and among C-SPAN as well, they made it clear you can't kind of do this in a government facility. And also Politico. They did an article of how this whole RNC is violating the Hatch Act, basically. Particularly in this auditorium I'm talking about here. So go check that out. So until now, right now, I was under the impression that you can't violate the Hatch Act, or you can't do partisan political activity as a government employee in government facilities, or while you're on the clock, basically, as a government employee / servant. So, and I definitely didn't know that the president and vice president could potentially be excluded from that. So, I don't know. There's a lot of complications about the Hatch Act, and I feel like I have reason to believe so, because I've read stories about how Kellyanne Conway, the now former White House staff member, violated the Hatch Act according to a nonpartisan council in Congress, or like in a government-funded program. They thought she violated the Hatch Act, which is rare, super rare that council accuses someone of that, and she didn't get charged. So, but thankfully she's gone for she left for family reasons. I wish she didn't have family reasons. Kellyanne Conway, who I'm talking about here, I wish she didn't leave for the reasons she left, but she violated the Hatch Act, so I'm glad that aide to Donald Trump is now gone, and that she's not there anymore. So, all right, I'm getting on a tangent here. Let's review the thing. Just consider the Hatch Act. Look that up with the RNC. It's kind of wild that they really seem to break the law the entire time in our face on TV for 4 straight days. These people that are in power in this level of government, it's like they can do whatever they want. I found it to be a slap in the face while watching it, and I feel like I should mention that before really getting into this. So there you go. Let's get into it here, though. This is the first person who spoke at the convention. Let's look for his name.
Good evening.
God.
It is an honor to be with you tonight. My name is Charlie Kirk. I run the largest pro-American student organization in the country, Turning Point USA, fighting for the future of our republic. Speaking to you in my personal capacity tonight as a 26-year-old.
God damn, that guy's my age. Jesus Christ. 26. Honestly, I don't remember what this guy talked about. Again, I'm going to review a lot of speakers tonight. I don't remember what a lot of these speakers talked about either. So um, this is just an average reflection of what I saw at the convention, and I saw almost all of it. But it will also go to show that a lot of these speakers didn't have a giant effect on me, and this is one example. But he's 26. That's pretty incredible. Okay, I'm getting through Charlie Clerk because, again, he didn't really have an effect. Okay, I remember this next woman who talked. Her name is Rebecca Friedrichs. She's the For Kids and Country founder, and this has to do with education during the pandemic, I believe.
I'm here to give voice to America's great teachers because our voices have been silenced for decades by unions who claim to represent us. They do not. When other dedicated teachers and I served within the unions, we spoke up in defense of children, parents, scientific facts, and American values. For our trouble, we were...
Again, this was a mother with of a son who needed more attention in school, so she, if I remember correctly, she fought pretty hard for programs to be made in her state of Ohio, I believe. I could be wrong, but apparently Donald Trump helped in her cause, so she's just speaking out on that. So this is another thing where a promotion of how Donald Trump values school and education. There's been a lot of debate of education, how it should be handled, particularly in the pandemic, and Donald Trump has been, at least, I think he even mentioned this, that he wants schools to be open to normal capacity. He pushed for that at least last month or a few weeks ago. He wants schools to be open to full capacity and like as if we're not in a pandemic right now. And according to The Hill, a lot of the majority of Americans are not ready to have their kids go back to school. They're not comfortable with that. So there's obviously some that are cool with it. We have, I saw in the news a school in Florida, they were just walking into school. And some parents were complaining that a lot of them weren't wearing masks as they were going in, and parents weren't wearing masks when they were taking their kids in. Gotta love Florida, but there's some states that are cool with having kids go back to school. Georgia being another one. I noticed a few weeks ago, right as schools opened, like 800 or so kids got COVID. Good job, Georgia. But even in Utah, my cousin's son, he's going back into school. So, it's affecting everybody. And I believe, yeah, he is going back to school. That's what a family member told me. So, I don't know. I don't really like it. And Donald Trump, he did push for it pretty hard for kids to go back. I think that's an out-of-touch move, so that's what I have to say about that. Anyway, I'm not going to get into Friedrich's speech too much, so let's go forward. As you know, just to let you know on that note tonight, if I don't remember someone's speech, I'm not going to address it too much. I'm just going to move forward. This is a really long process, so I'm just going to go forward here. And I'm not an expert on this. I'm just getting closer into politics as an average American. So there you go. Hopefully I will be more, I'll follow it harder too. Next up was a woman from Montana. She is the wife of I believe a Marine. Let's listen to her story just a little bit. I will listen to tidbits. Let's hear what she has to say.
A story not just for entrepreneurs, but for millions of hardworking men and women who are building their American dream every day. A few months ago, like so many businesses, we got the crushing news a large event we were serving was canceled because of the virus. Our business was on the brink, threatened to be shut down from losses that were not our fault. I was scared. I thought of our 50 employees, the Mountain Mud family, and when I thought of their jobs, I thought of their rent being due, their kids, and I felt personally responsible. I'm not too proud to admit that I fell on my knees and prayed, Lord, what do I do? His words rang clear.
Why would
Keep
you
on
be
working.
disappointed
It will
in
be
saying
okay.
that?
I had faith. And let me tell you, you have to have faith when your husband is a Marine and a police officer who was shot at on the job.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And when you run a business, a little faith goes a long way. Faith in Jesus and faith in America. But I'm worried we have a
And
generation
Montana.
of Americans who have been told that the American dream doesn't exist. That's a lie. I know because I live that dream. That's why I feel so strongly that we need a president who believes in the American dream like President Donald Trump.
Okay, I gotta move forward, but, yeah, he believes in the American dream, but people who are dreamers can also be delusional, and, I'll give him that. He believes in the American dream, I guess, but I don't know. Uh, this whole thing about Donald Trump helping people and stuff uh, during the pandemic, very iffy. He was very hesitant on giving people any form of unemployment assistance or relief assistance during the pandemic. Basically he had to sign the first coronavirus deal because if he didn't, there'd be an uproar because people were scared. It was in May, and we were just getting used to this process of being in a pandemic period. But as time has moved forward, he didn't want his administration, meaning him, he didn't want to agree with Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in Congress to give us $2 trillion of relief. He wanted to give us $1 trillion. He wanted to cut unemployment benefits so people can, in his words, go back to work. This is all according to The Hill, from what I'm learning, particularly the Rising Show. He wanted to go back to, he wanted people to go back to work and not gain money from unemployment. They wanted to go back to work. He wanted them to go back to work and make money, and he felt like if he gave Americans more money in unemployment, they wouldn't be motivated to go back to work. One question about that: do you really think Americans who work want to be stuck in their house with their families all the time? With their kids who can't go back to school, they're stuck at home, so he has to deal with the family all day. That's one logistic question, But another thing is, according to polls according to The Hill and Rising, that talk show, there's been polls that state that people are looking for jobs more than the amount of people looking for jobs has skyrocketed. There's released polls of information stating that. So this idea that Americans are sitting on their ass is not true. There's evidence to prove that. This isn't Americans want to sit on their ass problem. This is the pandemic problem. 50 million people are unemployed in this country. That is 1/6, almost 1/6, 1/7 of the population is unemployed. It's more like it's a bigger fraction than that because you have to count in children and seniors who obviously won't work. So it's probably like 1/6, 1/5, maybe 1/4, debatable. But yeah, the whole unemployment argument is iffy with me. But to give them credit, to give the Trump administration credit over the Democrats and the rest of Congress, who haven't done shit for this coronavirus deal, they're still not even back from their stupid recess, which they should have gone at because they didn't make a second coronavirus deal before they left for their recess a few weeks ago, meaning that tens of millions of Americans are left without a job, in fear of being kicked out of their house for eviction, and in fear of being hungry. Americans, according to reports in the news in accredited newspapers, are being left hungry. You know, they're not eating enough because they don't have a job, they can't work, there's no income. And this relief package could have really helped. But they fucking went home with their stupid recess. Congress did. And they didn't do anything. And I will say this. I'll give the president credit here. He tried to do some things. First off, he made executive orders about a week ago, which tried to give some relief money to states, but it provided really nothing. He had really no legal standing to enact those orders with that kind of power, so it didn't really do much. But second of all, I guess he made a certain rule or law. I don't know how he did it, but he went around to where he made a law to where pretty much any resident in this pandemic almost doesn't have to worry about being evicted. He put up a moratorium. The administration did, and that's a big win. That's a win for Republicans. Where he provided a moratorium for Americans, where Americans don't have to pay the months of for the rest of the year until around, I believe, January 1st. Again, that's according to the Hill. So, that's what I'm getting out of it. So, the Trump administration at least is doing more, or at least trying to do more, than what Congress and especially the Democrats are doing in this crisis of the pandemic and this recession that we're having because of the pandemic. So let's go forward here.
Now more than ever.
Okay, trying to get forward here. Next speaker was Matt Gaetz. This guy came off as a schmuck to me in his speech here. Came off as just a rich boy. I don't know. He just comes off as a guy who wouldn't know about any poverty-stricken street if he tried. He's a congressional Republican. He's a representative from Florida in the 1st District. Wow, okay. Gaetz was he's an interesting guy. I will say that. And I think, okay. I think Matt Gaetz is, he just comes off as arrogant to me. Let's listen to a little bit of what he had to say. I don't want to get too far into it.
Or failure. President Trump is the first president since Reagan not to start a new war. Biden has foolishly cheerled decades of war without winning, without end.
That's true.
President Trump knows we are strongest when we fight hardest, not in distant deserts, but for our fellow Americans. We must fight to save America now, or we may lose her forever. Joe Biden might not even notice. Settle for Biden. That's the hashtag promoted by AOC and the socialists. The Woketopians will settle for Biden because they will make him an extra in a movie written, produced, and directed by others. It's a horror film, really. They'll disarm you, empty the prisons, lock you in your home, and invite MS-13 to live next door. And the police aren't coming when you call. In Democrat-run cities, they're already being defunded, disbanded. Blaming our best and allowing society's work. That's the story they write in Hollywood. That's if the lights even stay on in California anymore. A state that cannot keep power running for its own people should not send its junior senator to be vice president. They used to write only in fiction, but nightmares are becoming real.
Okay, all the fictional bullshit. Nightmares, and we're in the swamp, okay? There's a lot of smart people in California, you idiot. Okay? Florida is full. There's a reason why people call Florida just an insane state to live in. With opening up Disney World during a pandemic, accepting pro wrestling, calling that an essential business during a pandemic. The state of Florida did that. Running sports events with fans in it during a pandemic. The first state to do that. Having schools open with people not wearing masks. Florida's just a circus over there. That's just my opinion as a Californian, and it just shows with how they're handling this pandemic. But I will give Matt Gaetz this. He did say something that is very true. Trump has not put us in a war since he has been president. I believe Obama has and everyone else has, but Donald Trump, he did not. He was very close, very close. He almost put us in a war with Iran in January. Let's not forget that. I think he bombed a top-ranked guy in Iran, and Iran was pissed. So let's not forget that. He was extremely close in getting us into a war. So let's not forget that. But that is a feather in Donald Trump's cap. He did not put us in a war. And it will be interesting, because I know Donald Trump, he seems to want to get people out of military, of wars, troops to be exact, but he hasn't done that. He didn't follow up on his promises during this campaign. So, and that mission hasn't gotten accomplished for whatever reason. So, there you go. Anyway, this Matt Gaetz guy, he just came off as totally cocky, and I just didn't like that. Next up, we're going to another U.S. House candidate from Maryland, Kim Klacik. I think she said something pretty damning here. Let's get to her.
Many of America's Democrat-run cities, and yet the Democrats still assume that black people will vote.
No, this Kim Klacik. She's a U.S. House candidate. Oh, she's not even, okay. She's running for the House. She's a Republican from Maryland, and I think she's around the Baltimore area. So let's see what she has to say. Keep in mind that Donald Trump specifically singled out Baltimore as like a rat-infested city or something like that within the last year or so. I mean, it was kind of disgusting what he said. So a bad rap sheet Donald Trump has had, specifically with the city of Baltimore. And Baltimore repented by criticizing Trump about it. So let's get to it here.
Made in America strength.
Back to the other
I
guy.
see every day in President Donald Trump. Thank you.
My name is Kim Klacik, and I'm running for Congress in Maryland's 7th District. And like Shirley Chisholm, I'm unbought and unbossed. Let me remind you, the Democrats have controlled this part of Baltimore City for over 50 years. And they have run this beautiful place right into the ground. Abandoned buildings, liquor stores in every corner, drug addicts, guns on the streets. That's now the norm in many neighborhoods. You think Maryland taxpayers would be getting a whole lot since our taxes are out of control. Instead, we're paying for decades of incompetence and corruption. Sadly, the same cycle of decay exists in many of America's Democrat-run cities. And yet the Democrats still assume that black people will vote for them, no matter how much they let us down and take us for granted. We're sick of it. We're not going to take it anymore. The days of blindly supporting the Democrats are coming to an end. In Baltimore, we had the highest number of black Republicans in the entire country running for office this election cycle. Joe Biden believes we can't think for ourselves, that the color of someone's skin dictates their political views. We're not buying the lies anymore. You and your party have neglected us for far too long. We want safety in our neighborhoods. We want to make the most of the federal opportunity zone I'm standing in right now in West Baltimore. We want higher paying jobs and more business opportunities. We want lower taxes. We want school choice. We want a chance to get ahead, not just get by. That's what President Trump promised, and that's what President Trump delivered. I want Baltimore to be an example to Republicans around the country that we can compete in our inner cities if we reach out to the citizens and deliver real results. President Trump is bringing this country back roaring. He's bringing the American spirit to life for all Americans. So I'm asking you to help President Trump complete this great American comeback. And then I'm asking you to help me start this great Baltimore comeback. Thank you, and God bless America.
You know, for her to ask the people of Baltimore essentially to support a man who called, let's see what Donald Trump said. Trump, Baltimore. Let's see here. Oh, wow. He tweeted about Baltimore 9 hours ago. He set his sights on Baltimore. Okay, he said this in a tweet, in his own Twitter. Our president said this about Baltimore a couple of hours ago. Be smart, Baltimore. You have ripped off years. You have been ripped off for years by the Democrats and got nothing but poverty and crime. It will only get worse unless you elect Kimberly Klacik, the woman who just talked, to Congress. She brings with her the power and economic strength of the Republican Party. She works so hard. Why would the Baltimore people listen to Donald Trump after he called it basically a rat-infested city? You know, why would they do that? And he did it last July in 2019. He compared Baltimore. He just said those people are living in hell. And this is according to CNN. He called it, a rodent-infested mess. That's what he said. That's definitely what he said. C-SPAN confirmed that too. Yeah, it's a lost cause. People in Baltimore aren't going to listen to Donald Trump. They remember that shit. When the president calls your city a rodent-infested mess, you know, the president, a guy who's supposed to embrace every single city in America, not just the selected ones. When the president calls your city that, Baltimore's not going to support an endorsement that he makes. It's going to, if anything, it's going to make it worse for that candidate. That's just my opinion. How can it not? It's crazy to me. But let's go forward. Next person speaking here was, this is a woman named Ronna McDaniel, the Republican National Committee chair. She had a very effective speech here where she basically criticized, I don't remember what she said entirely, but she did make a point where
best person for the job. 4 years ago.
I'm trying to find what she said. She said something pretty effective.
And unlike Joe Biden, President Trump, the presidency, a man with an incredible this election is the most important in our lifetime. Your vote bless the United States of America.
Trying to find what you said.
Comforts Americans in times of pain and sadness. Now, everyone knows he can be tough. He's tough when he takes on China, tough when he works.
Let's see. I'm trying to find it.
check your voting status, secure your ballot, or
California, Colorado.
No, it doesn't say. She basically, I'm not going to keep looking for it. She basically said that she criticized the Democratic National Convention of the previous week by saying that the Democratic National Convention, they didn't provide any substance for Joe Biden. They basically the whole thing that they said was Joe Biden's a good person, Donald Trump's a bad person. And that was basically the argument that people in the Democratic National Convention made during that entire convention. And they didn't really provide much substance to Joe Biden and what he can do and all that stuff. None of that was really presented. And it was a effective argument that was made by McDaniel. She really did a good job in exposing that. And I agree with her. The Democratic National Convention was pretty boring. And in this convention, for the Republicans, they provided some examples that showed that Donald Trump is not the worst guy in the world. He's not an evil man. And they only needed to provide a couple of examples to prove that. And they kind of did for me as a viewer. You know, it showed that he's not the worst guy in the world. He just ain't. So after she spoke, they showed every state very quickly approve of Donald Trump as president, nominate him. It was the annual state nomination. Okay. Now it shows, a highlight video for Trump. Okay. Next person speaking at the government-owned facility is a woman. Okay, next was a nurse from West Virginia who showed that Donald Trump was an effective president. Let's hear what she said, just a little snippet. This is a nurse, and she's supportive of Donald Trump. And this is another example. This is going to be one of many, many examples in the convention showing that Donald Trump, showing the effectiveness of bringing just everyday workers who aren't politicians, come in and be effective by showing their support for Donald Trump and what Donald Trump's policies did for them and how they helped their difficult life in their career or profession that maybe previous administrations did not do. And it was effective throughout the campaign. And this is one of them.
Nurse for 17 years. I'm from the small town of Williamson, West Virginia, where I've lived my entire life, the daughter of a nurse and a coal miner. Even though I was the youngest of 4 children, I was always somewhat of a caretaker. It came natural for me. So it felt right to follow in my mother's footsteps and become a nurse. And this March, when COVID-19 sent our country into crisis, I knew I had to help any way that I could. I deployed to New York in April and then to San Antonio, Texas, working as a COVID relief nurse in both states. As I contended with the challenges of treating our patients who had their worlds turned upside down, I noticed a positive change in our healthcare system. President Trump recognized the threat this virus presented for all Americans early on.
No, he didn't.
And made rapid policy changes.
No, he did not.
And as a result, telehealth services are now accessible to more than 71 million Americans, including 35 million children.
Okay. She wasn't the most effective. But, again, I felt like she kind of was. Just having an everyday person there, just them being there is effective. And not to say that the Democratic National Convention didn't have those people from time to time. They did, but not nearly as much or as effectively as the Republican National Convention did. And that's my opinion just from watching both conventions. This idea that Trump was very reactionary to how he handled the pandemic, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. Now, granted, he did do early travel bans, particularly of China, and then he did a European travel ban not long after. But Trump did not take the virus seriously in the beginning. Let's not pretend like he did. He was he was joking about it in January and stuff, and like making fun of it. And and he didn't really provide much enforcement about it. And I've heard him do other things that I can get into. That can be an hour-long conversation of what he's done and hasn't done for COVID. He provided PPE. He forced some companies to make them, which is good. He provided assistance to New York with the ship, but he's also been very divisive with politicians and not really working with them as a team to attack this virus and just to get rid of it. There's been a lot of divisiveness. There's been the coronavirus relief thing, even though he hasn't been cooperative through that. The constant attacks towards Anthony Fauci and the hydroxychloroquine disaster he did during a presidential briefing. I mean, just so many things that the president, it's a mixed bag with how Donald Trump has handled it, but he did not react to it immediately. I'm not going to give him that. So let's go to the next person. Okay, now they're getting to COVID and like what Donald Trump did. Okay, next, so providing a highlight reel for that. Next person talking was Dr. G.E. Ghali, LSU Health and Scientist Center surgeon, crediting Donald Trump. Find it weird that a doctor is involved in these events as well. It's almost like, to me, being a journalist being involved in this. It's just, they should be impartial as well. So, I honestly don't remember what he said, and I'll get into it. 20 seconds or so.
And as someone who has recovered from COVID himself, the COVID-19 pandemic exploded into our great nation with an intensity unparalleled in history. But our medical investigation and drug development systems were not designed for a pandemic. The devastating effects of the coronavirus demanded immediate changes at the regulatory level. A prompt response led by President Trump cleared away the red tape that usually makes drug approvals a long and drawn-out process.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Talking about the vaccine, the Operation Speed, I want to say, in order to get a vaccine going and made for COVID-19. So Trump deserves credit there too, for providing that. But how much credit does he really deserve? I feel like that's a basic thing to do for every politician, is to provide a super quick program for the scientific community to endorse that, and in order for scientists to make a much quicker process in forming a vaccine for COVID-19. So I feel like any politician would do that. It's just a basic common sense thing that you should push for in something like this. So I'll give Trump some credit, but not much on that one. So let's go to next person. And now they're getting into okay, now Trump is talking to a number of people that are about the COVID, that are related to the COVID-19 epidemic and how people have dealt with it and stuff. Let's listen to a little bit of that, because I feel like Trump did a really good job here, even though it's in the White House. I don't like that. Hatch Act, but he did a really good job in looking like a normal human being and looking like a likable human being and talking to people. So I think that's very cool seeing that. Let's see what Trump has to say here, just a little bit.
So much with the COVID We can call it many.
And these are everyday people that he's talking to. So again, a lot of featuring of everyday people and hearing their story and stuff. And Trump looks like a good leader here.
Things from China virus. I don't want to go through all the names
Not
because
there.
some people may get
Not there. He
insulted,
looks
but that's
bad
the way
there.
it is. These are great, great people.
Stop saying that,
Doctors,
dude. It's not cool.
nurses, firemen, policemen. We want to thank you all. You have been incredible, and we want to thank you and all of the millions of people that you
China
represent.
virus.
Thank you all very
Just
much.
an irresponsible
Great job.
thing to say.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
It's funny when you're
So tell
not
me
the
a little
president.
about your stories. How about we'll start with you?
I'm a postal worker. Delivered to the senior community during COVID-19.
Good. And we're taking good care of our postal workers.
Absolutely.
That I can tell you. Believe me, we're not getting rid of our postal workers, you know. They'd like to sort of put that out there. If anyone does, it's the Democrats, not the Republicans.
This is at a time where the president is criticizing the post office for the credibility of mail-in voting for the election, saying it's rigged, and scaring a lot of Americans because of that kind of talk. And a lot of even Republican lawmakers had to reassure their constituents, their people, that mail-in balloting is safe. I'm a mail-in voter. You know, what does that mean for my ballot? My grandpa is a mail-in voter. What does that mean for his ballot? A World War II veteran. That's kind of scary that the president caused that kind of fear, and he provided no accountability for saying. I guess he does provide. He's owning up to that criticism he makes. So I guess he is. That's his belief. So he is providing accountability. So, but man, he's providing a lot of fear too in a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans with this thing. And I feel like it's almost an irresponsible thing to say.
I want to thank you very much, and thank everybody in that whole beautiful post office system. We appreciate it. How about you?
I'm a trucker.
Good.
I'm a small business in Ohio.
Right.
Home and steel mostly. Some of our customers actually made hospital beds with
Oh,
some
wow.
material.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. I love the
Fantastic.
truckers. You know, they're on my side.
Thank you.
I think all of them, frankly. I think pretty much all of them. How about you?
Probably true.
Post
office as well.
What do you do exactly?
Clean up everybody's mess and everybody's germs and all that.
Can I say that world, that profession will never be out of business. You know that, right?
Sure.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. And how about you?
I'm a registered nurse, President Trump. I work at a New Jersey hospital. It's called Berk Hill Williamsboro Hospital.
Right.
I also represent an organization of professional nurses. It's called the National Association
I love
of
Trump. He
Practice
has his arms
But I
down
want to
here.
tell you, sir, as a nursing supervisor, I am so in awe of your leadership. Honestly, I know many people have said often interesting things, but it takes a true leader to be able to ignore all that stuff and do what is right and not be offended by all the words being said. And
He is offended though.
we do show
He
that
clearly
kindness
is offended
to
with
us
stuff.
and as nurses, I appreciate that. But just as an individual, I'm grateful for that.
Well, I'm for the nurses. I'm for the doctors. I'm for everybody.
Look, that's not true. He is clearly offended. And he also, I don't think he's much of a leader, particularly in this year of 2020. And we don't have to get into other issues. We'll get into that stuff later of his leadership, lack of leadership there. But on the topic of the pandemic, it's a mixed bag with his leadership. And especially the leadership of communication. Communication's number one. He hasn't been a leader. He's been criticizing a lot of state governors, and he pressured them into opening up churches. Basically, he has criticized. He's been in a war of words with Andrew Cuomo instead of working with him. He talked about how the virus isn't real and it's a joke. And during the beginning of the year, I mean, the leadership, the idea that he's a leader in the pandemic, that's no.
Have to make this
quite a mixed bag.
China virus go away, and it's happening. Please go ahead.
I'm also a nurse. I represent Genesis Health.
I'm gonna go forward here. Next person talking was Jim Jordan, Republican from Ohio. Ohio, to my understanding, was one of the best states to handle the pandemic. So, just a quick snippet of what he had
Let
to
you go
say.
to church, but they'll let you protest. Democrats won't let you go to work, but they'll let you riot. Democrats won't let you go to school, but they'll let you go loot. President Trump has fought against each of their crazy ideas. He's taken on the swamp, all of the swamp, the Democrats, the press, and the never-Trumpers. And when you take on the swamp fights back. They tried the Russia hoax, the Mueller investigation, and the fake impeachment. But in spite of this unbelievable opposition, this president has done what he said he would do. Taxes cut, regulations reduced, economy growing, lowest unemployment years, out of the Iran deal, embassy in Jerusalem, hostages from North Korea, a new USMCA agreement, and of course he's building the wall and rebuilding our economy as we speak.
Yeah, that's why 50 million people are unemployed. Small businesses are fucked. Yeah, he's really rebuilding. Look, a lot of that stuff, though, is true. The wall, I don't know about a lot of the other stuff. I didn't read into that very much. But I think that, I don't know. Jim Jordan just sounds like every other politician. It's hard to really believe him, honestly. Next up, though, is one of the best speeches that I maybe heard all convention. And it wasn't even from a politician. It was from a football legend. Think about that. He's not a professional speaker like how a lot of these people are, including Donald Trump. Herschel Walker is a football player. You know, he's a gridiron athlete. He's not a talker. So for him to have one of the most effective speeches, what does that say about politicians? But I don't want to take anything away from Herschel Walker because this was an awesome speech. It was only a couple minutes long, short and sweet, but it was great. And it humanized Donald Trump quite a bit. And I got to admit, I was a little impressed. So let's listen to a little bit of what Herschel Walker, one of the greatest football players of all time, had to say.
Taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP. He made them feel special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive, they deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone...
That was a powerful line. I will say that. That was a powerful line for Herschel Walker to say, and again, that just goes to show it was one of the better speeches, I think, of both conventions. I really do. I thought it was great. So Herschel Walker did a great job here. Really made Donald Trump feel like a human being, and again, it disproves this idea that Donald Trump's a bad person. You know, it just by having speeches like that. Next up was...
I'm Natalie Hart.
Now, yeah, I feel like I'm crediting Donald Trump a lot and making Joe Biden look like shit. Joe Biden and Donald Trump both have their positives and negatives, and I think it's rather equal. So I want to make that kind of clear. Next person speaking was a woman named Natalie Harp, who's a bone cancer survivor. And this is about Donald Trump and this is promoting Donald Trump's healthcare policy. I don't know much about his stance on that, but I'll hear what she has to say here. Just a little tidbit.
By choosing to die early, I'd actually be saving the lives of others by preserving resources for them, rather than wasting them fighting for it too. In January, there would have been no China travel ban. Millions would have died. millions more would have been infected. Could there be no record levels of testing? No.
She's talking about Joe Biden, what he would do or not do. I think there would be a travel ban. I feel like that's common sense too.
To try treatments, no fast track for a vaccine, nor Operation Warp Speed ready to deliver it.
I think there would be a warp speed. That's what it's called with the vaccine.
Without Donald Trump as our patient advocate for the past 4 years, well, the opioid epidemic would have stolen even more lives from even more families. Kidney patients.
I'm gonna stop there, but she did endorse Donald Trump's health care plans and his response to the pandemic clearly, so there you go. Next up, for to close out the first hour, was a guy named Vernon Jones, who's a Georgia state representative. I think this was about Donald Trump and the idea that he's not a racist. Vernon Jones is a black man. But a lot of black men who talked in this convention, as you saw with Herschel Walker, they had that kind of dialogue about Donald Trump to where he's not a racist throughout this convention. So let's hear what Jones has
All
to say.
talk and no action, just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol.
That was
As if
embarrassing.
pandering were enough to keep us satisfied. Let me tell you why I'm supporting our president. I grew up in the South, in Laurel Hill, North Carolina, Scotland County, the Green Pond community to be exact. My parents, Robin and Rufus Jones, built with their own hands a 4-room cinder block home with no indoor plumbing.
I'm not going to get into the full story, but again, the idea that Donald Trump supports everybody, basically. I'm sure that's not all what Vernon Jones said. He's a Georgia state representative, but there you go. Next up was a guy named Andrew Pollock, who is a father of a Parkland, Florida school shooting victim. And Trump helped out the father, and I give Trump credit for that. I feel sorry for this guy. This was a good guy to have on, because what happened in Parkland was tragic too.
Isn't worth saying. One of the seniors walking in the hallways that day was my beautiful daughter, Meadow. She was just months away from graduating and beginning a new life. We were so proud of the woman she had become. But in the hallway on that 3rd floor, the gunman saw Meadow and shot her down the hallway, hitting her 4 times. After she was shot and on the floor, she crawled over to another student, a freshman girl, to protect her. She draped her body over her, and then the scumbag gunman shot my daughter at point-blank range 5 more times, killing Meadow and the girl she was shielding. She had a whole life ahead of her, and in that life, she could have done anything and been anything. So many moments that I waited so long for were taken from me.
Again, this was a situation where Donald Trump talked to Andrew Pollock, and he tried to assist him quite a bit, to where Pollock was clearly pleased. And there was a moment here where Pollock talks about how the media changed the subject when they were talking to Donald Trump, with Pollock behind him with other parents of the Parkland shooting. And Donald Trump looked at Andrew and said, "See, they don't care," or something like that. And it's powerful when you have guys like this on, the fathers of victims from a horrible shooting that takes place, a senseless shooting. I forgot about what happened in the Parkland case. I think that's what brought those high school speakers who were against gun control and stuff like that, or were for gun control. So, yeah. just a sad thing, but it was powerful in this convention. And so, therefore, the guy did his job here in that way, and he was effective. So now we're getting to another hype video for Donald Trump. Okay, so these are about protests of a couple people who defended their home in St. Louis. These are attorneys. Yeah, they defended their home from St. Louis, and they had guns, and I believe they were the ones arrested, even though protesters went into their homes. This is a man named Mark McCloskey. I don't know the woman's name, but these two said pretty bizarre things in this in their speech that I didn't like. But let's hear what they have to say, just a little bit.
Spurred on by their allies in the media, will try to destroy you. You've seen us on your TV screens and Twitter feeds. You know that we're not the kind of people who back down. Thankfully, neither is Donald Trump. President Trump will defend the God-given right of every American to protect their homes and their families. But more than that, Trump's vision for America is a country where you have an opportunity to work hard and build the life you dream of with a job you love, with your children being educated in great schools, in a community where your family can play in the backyard without fear, worship in a church without shame, and express your beliefs without retribution. Trump brought us the greatest economy our country had ever seen.
I still am trying to hear what the guy had to say that caught my attention.
Biden wants to bring it back. These are the policies that are coming to a neighborhood near you. So make no mistake. They're not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether by ending single-family home zoning. This forest-free zoning would bring crime, lawlessness, and low-quality apartments into now thriving suburban neighborhoods. President Trump smartly ended this government overreach, but Joe Biden wants to bring it back. These are the policies that are coming to a neighborhood near you. So
basically, this is a speech where a couple who are both attorneys, they had defended their homes from rather zealous protesters, not overzealous, but they were on their lawn and they were getting a little close as protesters. And so these two took out guns that they had in their house and had them for defense if they got any closer. And it was kind of a tense situation with the protests. In response to them taking out their guns, they got arrested, or something like that. Something happened where they did take out their guns from their house. So this gets into the argument where the RNC, they kept hammering this home. And the RNC is taking place, you gotta understand, when the Jacob Blake shooting happened with the police officer, shooting Jacob Blake 7 times in the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Jacob Blake, who's a black man, was shot in front of his kids by the car 7 times. So to say this during when that happened, it's awful timing. But they kept pushing on with it anyway. It's an argument that Republicans have made that I've heard at least from the RNC to now, 2 weeks later, of this idea that the radical left is threatening suburban households, or they're threatening civilization with their recklessness and their looting and destroying of small businesses and stuff. It's the radical left. They need to be controlled, and we need to control the crime. And they're ruining the peaceful protests. It's the argument they've made over and over, this argument against looters. And it won't work because, Americans care more about the recovery economically and health-wise with the pandemic. That's what they care about more. But, they keep using this radical left bullshit. And this was a good example of that in order to attack Joe Biden, who also doesn't support it. Next up was a woman named Kimberly Guilfoyle, who used to be a part of Fox. She was rather loud in her in her speech. Loud enough to the point where she was so loud there were memes about her online. She was the funniest of this entire convention, and also most cringeworthy when you heard her. So there you go. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. I don't remember what she said, but she's a former Fox News contributor. She's dating Donald Trump Jr., I want to say. So there you go. Next up talking was, I don't know who this guy is. Now we're getting to where I didn't listen to it. Representative Steve Scalise, Republican from Louisiana, minority whip. So, minority whip in Congress. So he's a big deal. Let's listen a little bit what he had to say, even though I didn't listen to him.
Criminal justice reform.
So the majority whip is Nancy Pelosi. This is for the Republicans in the House of Representatives. He's the leader for the Republican side. So let's hear what he had to say.
And claims to care about the working man. But millions of good manufacturing jobs were shipped overseas during the Obama-Biden years to countries like China. Donald Trump brought those jobs back. I've seen how deeply President Trump cares about rebuilding our evaporating middle class. President Trump pledged to give the forgotten men and women of America a real shot at the American dream. And again, he delivered. The lowest unemployment rate in over 50 years, women creating small businesses at record pace, wages rising, the fastest, by the way, for lowest income levels. What can Joe Biden say to that? What has Joe Biden done in his 47 years in Washington that can compare to that? President Trump has delivered for the hardworking people of this great nation. It's going to take that kind of bold leadership to get us out of this COVID crisis. After President Trump saved lives by shutting down flights from China and Europe, he's now focusing the full weight of the government on a revolutionary plan to cure this virus by cutting red tape and empowering scientists
He's not
to
working
create
with the
a
government.
vaccine.
I guess
This
like
is
not
visionary
Congress,
leadership
at
in
least.
action at a time when we can't afford another 47 years of hollow promises. America's been through tough times before. Who better to lead us out of these times than the president who already built the strongest economy our country has ever seen? Donald Trump did it before. Donald Trump will deliver for us again. God bless you, and God bless these United States of America.
Yeah, he's an effective speaker too, and Scalise mentioned something very interesting. He mentioned something about how Joe Biden, and Donald Trump mentions this in his speech in day 4 of this convention, and it was probably the biggest thing he said. It was about how Joe Biden outsourced a lot of jobs in middle America, in smaller town America. A lot of those jobs were outsourced to places like China and Mexico for cheaper price and cheaper labor. So it's a bad look to Biden, and it's effective. And it was effective here. Maybe not as effective because Scalise is kind of bland a little bit, even though he is pretty smooth without what he says. It is something to take in consideration for Biden. That's bad. And he seems to be friendly with China, which is not good. So does Trump, though, in a way. But, yeah, there you go. Next people I didn't really listen to. Next up was Sean Parnell, a Republican from Pennsylvania. I'm not going to listen to him. I got to get moving here. Next up was a promotion for Trump again, criticizing Democrats, how they failed. Basically, now we're looking at Trump. So now Trump is talking to a number of people. I didn't listen to these guys here. Let's see. I don't know who these guys are.
28 years, right? They had you there they had you scheduled for a long time, Andrew. We had to get you back. And I have to say that, to me, President Erdogan was very good. And I know they had you scheduled for a long time, and you were a very innocent person. And he ultimately, after we had a few conversations, he agreed. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate the people of Turkey, and you still appreciate the people of Turkey.
All these, I feel like these are hostages that are big here. Oh look, I made a comment in this video about a week ago about Mark McCloskey, who was that attorney from St. Louis who took out his gun with his wife to kind of back away the protesters. This is the comment he said that bothered me. So let's get back to that. Mark McCloskey's comments about the incoming progressives in Congress is insulting. He is supporting all the people who have been there for decades and who know nothing about today's working class. Those people who are on both sides of the aisle don't want change. That's what I've kind of been learning from the Hill. Those were the lines that bothered me. It was his remarks against the New Democrats in the Democratic Party, the progressives, who seem very promising, unlike the older people who have been there who are Democrats, who seem to they want to keep things the same, and that's not working in America. So that's what bothered me with his comments. But let's get back to this. Donald Trump is talking to a number of people. I believe they're hostages, or they're related to hostage crisis.
Mr. Andrew?
We love the Turkish people.
Sounds great. It's great to have you back, Andrew. Thank you. Please.
Mr. President, thank you for having me. My name is Sam Goodwin. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I was held in Syria for 63 days, and I think I speak for my fellow former hostages and detainees here when I say I'm as grateful as I've ever been for anything to be home safely. And thank you for the invitation and opportunity to be here. Particularly, Ambassador O'Brien was incredibly supportive and helpful to my...
Okay, so these are hostages held in different countries. Trump looks good in these kind of conversations with normal Americans. He looks like somebody who can lead a conversation and stuff, and he comes off as very likable in this environment. So it's a smart move by the Trump administration to put him in these videos with normal Americans. So now going forward in this is where I really wasn't paying attention to day one. Next up was a guy named Maximo Alvarez, who was a part of the Cuban dictatorship and he came to America. I honestly don't know what he said, but this is more about fighting against socialism, stuff like that. And so I don't know. We're not going to go into socialism, even though I want the government to do some socialistic practices, but I want America to be, from what I understand, these are the only two economic things I understand, is capitalism and socialism. I think it's healthy for America to be a mix of both. You can't be one or the other extreme. But I don't know. I didn't hear his speech, so this Maximo Alvarez's speech. So there you go. Didn't affect me clearly. Next up is a criticism of the Democrats again. Another video. Next up was Nikki Haley, who is a former U.S. ambassador to the UN of the Trump administration. She was also a former governor, I want to say, of South Carolina. Let's hear what she had to say, because she was pretty unmemorable here too. So let's hear what she had to say, though.
Joe Biden and the Democrats are still blaming America first. Donald Trump has always put America first, and he has earned 4 more years as president. It was an honor of a lifetime to serve as the United States ambassador to the United Nations. Now, the UN is not for the faint of heart.
Honestly, I'm not going to get into it. But she was pretty unmemorable. I'll just get there. I want to get moving here. So, next up is Donald Trump Jr., who looked like he was crying the entire time in the speech, oddly enough. He criticized the media and the swamp a lot. He made a lot of speeches like that. Let's hear what he had to say. He's a pretty memorable person.
They attacked my father for suspending the pay.
This is Donald Trump's son.
Tax for middle-class workers. In fact, if you think about it, Joe Biden's entire economic platform seems designed to crush the working man and woman. He supported the worst trade deals in the history of the planet. He voted for the NAFTA nightmare. Down the tubes went our auto industry. He pushed for TPP. Goodbye, manufacturing jobs. Beijing Biden is so weak on China that the intelligence community recently assessed that the Chinese Communist Party favors Biden. They know he'll weaken us both economically and on a world stage. Biden also wants to bring in more illegal immigrants to take jobs from American citizens.
I don't know. The idea of the Trump family being cabinet members to Donald Trump, I think is such a crime. I think it's bullshit. I don't like that. I think Donald Trump, in putting those people in power that are family members, in that kind of power, I think Donald Trump should, I don't know, that's impeachment-like behavior to do this stuff like that. So I really don't like that. I don't really care what Donald Trump Jr. has to say. You know, the whole thing about China, outsourcing jobs to China, I get that. I will say, though, that Joe Biden seems to have a good relationship with China. A rather kind of friendly one. Enough to where people are reasonably uncomfortable. So I don't like that idea. That's one negative of Joe Biden being president. So I will say that. Next up, let's go past crying Donald Trump Jr., who looked like he was tearing up. It's just weird. And he was given a long time to talk here. Okay, we're talking people endorsing Trump, criticizing the Democrats. Next up was Tim Scott. I didn't really hear what he said. Man, he talked for a while. He talked for like 20 minutes. Let's just hear a snippet of what he had to say.
And started teaching me valuable life lessons. Like having a job would be a good thing, but creating jobs would be even better. That having an income could change my lifestyle, but creating a profit could change my community. He planted the seeds of what would become Opportunity Zones. This initiative that the president and I worked together on is now bringing more than $75 billion of private sector investment into distressed communities. I took those lessons to heart and started putting the pieces of my life back together. I realized a quality education is the closest thing to magic in America.
Clearly, they put Tim Scott in a big position because he is an influential senator. Tim Scott's the only black senator, Republican, in Congress, or the black congressman, Republican, even. That might be the case. So he's but he also is a very influential figure as well, not just because of the color of his skin, but because he's a good, smart politician. But he was given a lot of time. I wish I would have listened to his speech, honestly. That's just the part of it that I didn't listen to. I didn't listen to the last third of this convention, of this day of the convention, which I'm bummed out about. Anyway, guys, I'm going to resume this another time. It is fucking late, but day 2 coming right now.